Hi, my name is Gudrun from GE Designs. Welcome to Facebook Friday. Hi everyone, thank you for being here with me on this beautiful Friday. Of course, we have to celebrate Friday with a cocktail. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But of course, I hope you are all excited and waiting for the finishing, or should we say, assembly step of our strip along. So putting together our strip to shore blocks, I'm going to show you all of that and the adjustments that you need to make for the split version. What did I call it? Spaced version. Sorry, spaced version, and then the original, and give you some tips and tricks how it all comes together really, really nicely. So make sure to comment and put in the comments your name and where you are tuning in from. I was kind of sneaking and looking at it before we went, I started talking, and I saw all kinds of countries and all the states that I could think of being represented. So thank you all for being here. And I saw some people having some goodness in a glass or a cup, so that was great. I have Costa Rica, I see Norway, Sweden, and I saw Italy. So welcome everybody and cheers. Today's cocktail, it's Easter weekend. For those of you that celebrate Easter, happy Easter. But I wanted to say this is such a kind of an iconic travel weekend, so a lot of spring breaks are happening usually around this time of year. As me being from Iceland, this weekend was always a travel weekend for everybody. Everybody went to their cabins, and of course, everybody's staying in place all over the world. So I thought we should bring a little bit of spring break into our houses. So I had these strawberries that were kind of like getting to the end of their lifespan. So what a perfect way to use them up for a strawberry daiquiri. So I have in here, all you need is some kind of a rum, and I didn't have regular rum, so I had pineapple rum, so I threw that in there. And then you want some orange liqueur, which I used just a Patron orange liqueur. You can use Grand Marnier, you can use Cointreau, anything, you can use Kinky, whatever you want. I will put the recipe up in the crew for exact measurements. Just a little bit of sugar and a squeeze of a full lime and some ice, and then you just whoop it all up. I added a little touch of dark rum. I had a little bit of dark rum to kind of enhance that rum flavor, and there it is. Cheers, everybody. Frozen. If you have frozen strawberries, you could actually do the same thing, just lessen some of the ice, and you have the same result. Really refreshing, and this flavor really just takes me on vacation. It's kind of sad, but we do what we can do. So of course we're gonna have a giveaway at the end of the show, so make sure you stay tuned. And we had our last week's winner, her winnings are a $25 gift card to the GE Design store, and our winner is Lori Brown Murner. Congratulations. Wrong. That was the wrong image. Lori, I asked in the giveaway question last week, I asked, what was your last good read? So I was kind of trying to get some hints on some good books. And she said she just finished Snowflower and The Secret Fan by Lisa C. So I have to check these out. But thank you so much. All right, some great news. The point trimmers, all of you that had ordered the point trimmers, they came in Wednesday, and we have gotten them all out. Of course, the orders keep coming, so I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for keeping us busy here at home. And it's a way for us not to be in each other's hair. We're just busy, so that's great stuff. Now, though, we have such a demand for XL rulers that the manufacturer sold out, and not quite there for the next shipment. So our shipment is delayed into next week. So if you place an order for an XL ruler, you probably got an email from me if you wanted to wait till next week for us to ship it. And most people are good with that. So just know that we're getting a lot of them next week. But thanks again for ordering and supporting my little home business. And I want to show my appreciation back. Back in February, I stopped at Fat Quarter Shop headquarters that is in the Austin, Texas area while we were there for QuiltCon. And I recorded a bunch of videos for them using the Stripology rulers. And one of the things that I did, I designed a little fun little table runner and wrote a pattern so that you can get for free. And this little runner is called Little Kim. We can maybe put a picture of it up in the corner there. Yeah, so really, really cute. So this is actually just made with one charm pack. So all you need is one charm pack, and then of course I used the mini Stripology mini ruler, which is very, very handy. You can do this runner with the XL and the squared, but of course working with the mini is so much handier because it's just more maneuverable than the big ones. And because a lot of people are new and you probably don't know much about this little guy and how mighty she is, I am going to do some extra demos for you this coming Tipsy Tuesday on the mini, and show you some more details on this little pattern and my other little patterns. I have a bunch of little patterns that use charm squares, so 5-inch squares, so charm packs. I'm sure that some of you have some laying around that will be fun to whip up a little cute little table runner over the weekend or next week. So of course, I know you're all waiting for the big step of the quilt along or the strip along. So I got all my blocks done, and I showed you on Tipsy Tuesday, I showed you my blocks. So I have now one row done. So as you can see, I kind of put it up here because I want to talk about it as we start working on this. So what you want to get your hands on before you start your cutting, I told you not to cut your 30-degree triangles or any of your other stuff from the background. So all I had you do last week was cut those 2.5-inch strips and into those half hexagons. And because the reason is that if we're going to be using the Stripology XL ruler for convenience, you're going to cut your strips a little bit differently. So what you want to do is go to the blog. I added a link in the description of the video. And I have now another sheet, an extra sheet to download and print. This one, I just call that cutting for sashing. So part 2 cutting reference sheet. And it shows you exactly what, or kind of tells you exactly what to do depending on what kind of tools you're using. So this kind of takes you through it, but always know that you can refer back to the videos. So another thing you want to print out, and this has been available, the link is in the blog, so everything is in the blog if you want to find anything. And this little sheet is called the triangle sheet, so Stripology XL triangle sheet. The bottom part is mostly about cutting 45-degree right triangles, which we won't be using, but it also talks about if you are adjusting for any kind of 60-degree triangle pattern and want to use the XL ruler, this is how you can adjust it, because you need to cut a little bit bigger strip if you're going to use the XL ruler. So here on the right side, it shows you how to cut the 30-degree right triangles, and kind of explains that process. So that means you would have to have the Stripology XL or the original plus the trimmers. The trimmers are essential for that step. So if you obviously don't have either one of those, you probably have been using a 60-degree ruler for the sew along or the strip along. So then just go ahead. I'm going to show you how to do all of that at the same time. So that's what you need to get your hands on. Another great chart if you don't have that yet, and this is the 1/4-inch cutting chart. You can find that on my website under free patterns and templates. It's just a 1/4-inch chart for cutting any kind of 1/4-inch increments with the Stripology rulers. All right, so that is what we are going to be using. And let me just check and see if there's any questions. Lots of folks joining us. That's really great. So somebody's taking breaks from doing all kinds of fun. Somebody's working on Little Kim already. That's really great. So somebody's asking about a final size of a block. So we'll talk about that later. And we got some trimming questions already, but I think I'm going to go through the demo. So I'm going to demo the 2 different cuts. So one would be the setting triangles, so those 30-degree triangles that are going to be at the top and bottom of each row. So I'm going to talk about those first, and then we're going to talk about the sashing units that you need to cut, if only if you're doing the spaced version. So let's review our different versions of the quilt. So first up, let's put up the strip to short, the original and the simplified. So this is not spaced. So this is just putting the blocks together with the 1-inch sashing strip along in between each row. So this, you would not need to cut any sashing parallelograms from that. But if you want to do the spaced version, which is the next slide, then you will see you have that little bit of sashing in between each block. So that is only if you're doing either one of those, the original spaced or simplified spaced. Only if you're doing that will you need to do that second part. All right, so let's move right into our cutting. So I'm going to start with, if you were doing just not using the Stripology ruler, just using your 60-degree triangles. And so what you want to do, I'm going to find my triangle. That would be helpful. Oh, it's hiding under all my paperwork. So I have my triangle, and you can cut these actually with folded, because you're always going to need a mirror image. So I recommend folding your fabric and cutting it that way, because then you automatically get mirror images from each one. So we're going to just start, and I actually like to, we're going to first just kind of straighten that edge, take that selvage off. So I'm just using a horizontal line here on the side. I'm going to just turn and cut this off. So we have a straight edge here. So now this is according to the pattern. So if you're using the triangle ruler or a diamond ruler, any of the hex rulers, you are just going to follow the instructions that are in the pattern. So this is on the pattern, but I like to demonstrate this because it can be sometimes a little confusing with the triangle rulers. So the strip is 4.5. So I have put my arrows on the 4.5-inch line on this Creative Grids triangle ruler. So I will align that 4.5-inch line on the bottom of the strip. Now on that cut edge that I just trimmed, what you want to do, you'll see there's a center line. I'm going to put this close. So there's a center line going through the center of the triangle, but then there's a dotted line on each side. So dotted line, and we want to use the dotted line to the left of that center line. So the dotted line to the left, and we're going to line that with that cut edge. And then the 4.5-inch line here, and what you will notice, you will have a flat tip at the edge of the strip here. So this is going to be my 30-degree triangle. Going to make my first cut like this, and as you'll see, because it's folded, you will get mirror image units, and that's what we want right here. So then with this next cut, it's always a little bit confusing because we just cut this first one. What you want to do is rotate your ruler like this, and we're still going to be using the dotted line to the left of the solid line. Dotted line to the left. Now, yes, it's the other line, but it's still the one to the left. And so we're going to just align that dotted line with the edge of the fabric here. And then we want to pull the ruler down. You'll see where that tip ends flat here. And this solid line ends right here where the tip ends flat. So we want to bring this down until the end of that line touches the edge of the fabric. And here's a way to test to see if you are completely aligned. Just take one of those units, lay it right on top to check yourself and make sure you have the right size, and then you make this cut right here. And then you just continue on this way. Turn it, use the dotted line to the side, to the left side of that solid line, and turn. And again, the dotted line to the left of the solid line, and this tip down here, and you continue cutting your strip until you have all of your mirror image units. That will differ depending on what size you're making. Okay? So now I'm going to show you how to do this if you want to use the Stripology XL or the original. So as I show you in that sheet, when you print that, you will be cutting your strips a bit wider. So you'll be cutting them at 5 1/4. And this is indicated in this other sheet that I told you to download. Right here, whenever you are cutting any patterns that need this type of unit, you would just cut your strip 3/4 inch wider than the pattern. And the reason being why I say 3/4, because always when I'm doing setting triangles or anything like that, it's better to have a piece larger than you need it, than smaller. So I've gone ahead and cut a 5 1/4 inch strip here. So I'm going to leave it folded. So now I'm just going to lay it diagonally on my cutting board or cutting mat and bring the ruler over. So I'm going to be using the 60-degree line aligned with the bottom of the strip. And here's where you want to reference the 1/4 inch cut sheet. So this original sheet, I've just moved my arrows down here to the 5 1/4 inch increment. So now it's just the same as you were cutting strips. So the first cut is always going to be through the 0. And then I'm going to be cutting my first cuts at the 10 1/2 and 21. 21 is not enough. Well, the strip is not long enough for that. So I'm just going to make that one cut at 10 1/2. So 10 1/2. And then what you want to do, of course, is remove this little guy from here. And then you're going to turn your ruler, align. Oh, actually, no, sorry. I forgot. This was just the first cut. So we cut the first cut at 10 1/2. And then we want to move the ruler over so that the edge of the fabric is now aligned with the 1/4 inch dotted line. Like this. And then we go and cut our second cuts, which are going to be at the 5 and then the 15 1/2. Now 15 1/2 is not going to reach my ruler is not long enough for this, but that's okay. We're just going to slide the ruler upwards so that my diagonal line is now aligned with the top of the strip. So I have this 1/4 inch line extending down here. So this is all nice and aligned. And now I can go ahead and cut through the 15 1/2. All right. So now I'm ready to turn it. Now I'm going to turn it and align the top line like this. And we're just going to align this little piece down here. And we're going to do the exact same thing. So cut through the 0 and then the 10 1/2. And then we're going to move it over and cut through the 5. And that's it, because we don't have a 15 1/2. So I'm going to cut through the 0. And then I'm going to cut through the 10 1/2. And then I'm just going to slide it over. So here, I'm going to slide it over so that now we have this corner along the 1/4 inch line up top. And then we go to our second cuts. We're going to cut through the 5. And that's really all, because the 15 1/2 is really no fabric. So that is it. So now we have triangles. 60-degree triangles. And so what I like to do is just stack them up, because we're going to cut them apart. And so you're going to just need any ruler for that. You can actually use the Stripology as well. And I'm going to take these. So if you were using the original ruler, because we only have this one line, what I want you to do is follow the first steps and cut your diamonds. So then your units would be like this. And then all I want you to do is take a ruler And then because we're not going to complicate things and try and turn it because that ruler is so much shorter, just take a regular ruler and just cut these guys apart, corner to corner like this, into the triangles. So then you'll have this. And now we're going to cut them apart. So what you want to do is have a horizontal line aligned with the bottom of the rectangles, and then the side, you want to align it just with the tip of the triangle, and we're just going to cut these apart. So now we have mirror image, but we have these big tips. So now it's time to use our trimmers. So as you can see, the trimmer, I'm going to show you up close. That trimmer has a dotted line on the right side of the middle there. That's the line we're going to use to align with the side of the triangle. So we're going to line that with the side of the triangle like this, and then we're just going to slide the trimmer down until this edge is aligned with the edge of the fabric. So like this, and then we're going to trim this off, and we have our setting triangles. For the other side, we just flip it over and do the same thing. Align this with the side, pull it down, and cut. So there we are. And they are mirror image because we cut them double-sided. Okay? So that, now you're ready for with your setting triangles. So if you did not want to do the spaced version, this is all the extra cutting that you need to do before you can start assembling your blocks. But let's do, let me show you how to cut the parallelograms. These are the parallelograms that we need to cut if you want to do the spaced version. So on that sheet that I showed you that we need to download, I talk about cutting the sashing parallelograms for spaced versions. And you're going to need to cut some extra 1-inch strips from the background. Now you already cut a lot of them to use for your sashing, but these are the number of strips that you need extra for each of the sizes. And then we're going to cut the strips into, again, mirror image parallelograms. Move this out of the way. So what happened to mine? Oh, there they are. So these are parallelograms that are mirror image, like this. So I'm going to show you first using regular tools. So using a 60-degree, either triangle, which all you need to do with that one is find that little angle. So I have a strip here. Actually, I thought I had 2 strips. Of course, things start disappearing once I'm here. Okay, so here we have a 1-inch strip. And if you're cutting, you want to keep them up folded so they're double layered, like this. Oh, there it is. That's actually a 1.5-inch strip. I need to trim it, but that's okay. So here it is, double folded, and we're going to cut the parallelogram. So first thing is just getting that 60-degree angle. So you can use any 60-degree ruler, diamond, to get the 60-degree angle like this. Or if you have any kind of ruler that has a 60-degree, oh, this is the wrong angle, so I have to turn it upside down. So I have this 60-degree line here, so I can cut that angle. And that is just to get us started. So now you want to cut 4.5-inch parallelograms. And so you want to just take any regular ruler. This one happens to be 4.5 inches. So I can just lay that. I want to lay that aligned with this line, with the edge of the fabric here. And so we're measuring from here to here, 4.5 inches. Just know that the measurement on the bottom is not going to be 4.5 inches. The measurement from here to here is 4.5 inches. Does that make sense? So if I measure it from here to here is 4.5 inches. All right. So don't try and measure this part. All right. So this is how you would just continue on with that. if you have the Stripology rulers, we would just place this at an angle, use the horizontal line or the diagonal line, 60-degree line to line up with your strip, and we're cutting at 4.5-inch increments. So 4.5, 9, 13.5, and so on. So you should be able to get 4 pairs out of each of those strips. So then what you want to do, of course, is stack them up and use the 60-degree trimmer, or if you have a 60-degree ruler, to trim these little points off, because that way everything will fit together so nicely. So the number of pairs, I'll call these just pairs because we're always going to need opposites. So the number of pairs needed is also listed at the bottom of this sheet. So we need 30 for crib, 42 for lap, 96 for twin and full, and then 130 for queen. So now, of course, is the step of just arranging your rows. So how this comes together, you want to take your blocks, and you always want to alternate how they're going to come together, like this, and make your rows. So depending on the size, of course, that will determine how many blocks are in a row. The next row over would always have kind of these circles connecting, and then it will be sometimes they are back to back, and sometimes they are facing like this. Now, of course, there will be a strip in between. But if you're not doing the spaced version, you will just be assembling your rows like this with no spacers, with no sashing. So that's really easy. You arrange them once you're happy with the layout. You would just place these on top of each other like this. And here you see, again, another benefit of the trimmers, because this will fit even here, this is even here, and then these seams are going opposite directions. So once you sew, these should kind of fall into place and be going the opposite direction. So that should not be any issues at all, and just makes things so much easier when you're putting these things together. Now at the top and bottom of each row, we're going to be using the setting triangles. So this would be the triangle for that side. So when we place that, you have a flat angle here on the triangle, and that just goes even with that flat tip. Yes, this is going to stand out on this side. Don't worry about that. Make sure that this is even. And then once you sew, this will be nicely flush with everything like this. So each row would have this on the top and on the bottom. All right. So if you're going to do the spaced version, we have, let me just put it this way so we can show you. You can see more of it. So I like to just arrange them, and then I just place the appropriate parallelogram in the right spot. This one fits there. Of course, you will see that this one would not fit because that is not the right angle. So this would be the opposite. So then this one will be on the next end down here. So they always alternate. So when I'm putting together the rows, I like to sew all the little sashing strips onto the blocks first and then press them. So I press it always towards the little sashing. It's always easier to press towards a strip that does not have a seam in it. So I press it towards the little sashing, and then once that is done, I join them. And so it's the same thing. These will all fit together because the sashing have their points trimmed off as well. So then you just join the whole row and piece all of your rows together like this. All right, so now we have all of our rows together. And it's time to add our sashing between the rows. So what we want to do is take our 1-inch sashing strips. So all of our 1-inch sashing strips that we have left over. Now, if you didn't do the space, you should just have all your strips. And we want to sew them together into one long strip. So you want to do that diagonally. So I place them crisscross like this. You can draw a line diagonal like this, but this is such a short distance because they're only 1 inch. I usually just eyeball it. So I sew from this corner to that corner. I just drew this line so you could see it better. And then I will just use scissors to trim these off, and then trim my seam allowance to 1/4 inch. And that's not necessarily need to be perfectly accurate, so I just eyeball that as well. Now these you want to press open. This is such a small seam, and we want to press it open because when we join the blocks, we're going to be pressing towards this strip, so it really makes a difference to sew them diagonally and flatten them out like this to minimize the bulk. If the seam was going straight across and then you would fold this in, you would have a lot of thickness in there. So this is a way to eliminate that. So what you want to do is make a really long strip from all of your 1 inch strips and press that and get them ready. Then what you're going to do, I usually just take my assembled rows and I measure a few of them. Like I take 4 of them and I measure them from end to end. Now if they're all the same size, that's awesome. You're going to use that measurement to cut your sashing units to size. So, and just remember, you will need a number of sashing strips that you're going to need is, if your quilt has 12 rows, you're going to need 1 less. So you're going to need 11. If your quilt has 8, you're going to need 7. So just kind of look at that. Because once we have these strips, the sashing strips assembled or cut into the right size, then it's really easy. I just pin it. So I start by sewing the sashing strips onto each of the block rows. So you can pin it at the top, pin it at the bottom, and then pin it even all the way. And then, of course, we're going to use the same kind of strategy that we did with Elvira, which is bob, the little tip with bob, bias on the bottom, which also applies bigger on the bottom. But we have, not that we have much bias here. We have one of these little diamonds has a bias edge. So I always like to have my little strip on the top and sew all of these strips onto a row of blocks. And then I can press that out. Whenever I'm assembling a quilt, I like to do that like this, and then I like to join 2 of those. So then I would take 2 of those and join them. So here I have 2 rows that I'm joining. And so I would join 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and then I would join 4 and 4. So my final seam is always with 2 big pieces instead of trying to put 1 row onto a piece that has 6 rows. It's always harder. So it's always easier to have as even pieces when you're joining long rows. All right, so now here I have 2 rows that I've pinned because I want to show you just a little bit of a tip. So I have them pinned down. This one has the sashing on, and then this one has it on this side. So they're put together like this, and they are pinned. And so one of the things, let me show you in the front camera. One of the things that we probably want to kind of try and match up is that these look kind of even going across. Now, sometimes it just kind of depends on, now this is going to be your quilt. Are you super picky about that? If you're not, I wouldn't worry about it. Of course, our rows should be similar length. So if you just put them together, they should kind of get together pretty evenly. So, and this goes for both the spaced and the original version. But we want to kind of have them at least close. So here's a little trick I want to show you that I do. After I have kind of joined them all or laid them together and pinned them, here's how I check. So I'm going to just remove this little pin. So I have this laid, and this is the sashing strip here on top. What I'm going to do is just pull from behind here and fold this over, and you will see the seams from the other side are going to come around. And what I'm looking for here is that the diagonal seams coming from the other side and then this seam from this side, that they kind of match up here. So again, you just take that 1 inch strip and fold it in half, fold this over, and then you can see if they're going to be connecting. Does that make sense? Okay, so maybe I can show you this again. So this is kind of what I do. I kind of lay my strips together, and then I go ahead and check all the little intersections to make sure that I'm kind of even, and maybe I can adjust my pins a little bit until I'm happy with it, and then I'm ready to sew it together. So once you have those double rows together, of course, it's just about joining the whole thing. Yes, that was a lot of little tips, but you can do this. So just make sure that you watch the video, pause it throughout, and take your time with it. Now, one of the things that I've seen already pop up in the crew is that some people are thinking not to add this little strip, and that's totally fine. It's totally up to you. I liked it because it gave a little bit of more air to my kind of wild hexagons, and once I laid them together, I didn't like how they were kind of not, I was not seeing them uniform. So that kind of, this little strip enhanced these hexagons and gave it a little bit of air to breathe. And so that's kind of what I feel like is going to be happening with these guys, that this is going to really space them out and give them life. Now, can you eliminate that? Absolutely. You can do whatever you want. But just let me tell you this. There's another beautiful thing about this little sashing strip. Although I have to admit, I normally don't like adding little tiny sashings to my quilts, but sometimes it's just needed, because this little strip also has a secondary feature, which is a beautiful thing. We don't need to match any seams. So we don't need to nest each and every one of these seams, which can be kind of a pain in the you-know-what sometimes. So by adding the strip, you also eliminate that feature. And like I just explained with how to get this close to matching is the key word. It doesn't have to match exactly, because you have that space that kind of fools the eye a little bit. So that is kind of my tip on that. But if you want to do it differently, go for it. I see some amazing versions. Now, you can easily add more borders to this quilt. The pattern is, does not have any border, just has the triangles on the bottom and the top. And so I think I might actually add a little more black. So maybe a 2.5 inch strips on each end and the top and bottom, just to kind of float everything off. I may do that. I may not. I'll kind of see how once everything is together. But I want to check out some of your questions. I'm sure this was kind of a lot. And like we've discussed before, you're not supposed to follow and do the things along with me. You're supposed to go back and watch once you get there. Okay. All right. So let's see. Okay, great tips. Great. I'm happy that you like the tips. So let me just go really far back. And
do you best press when you iron your fabric? Looks crisp.
Somebody asking if you best press once ironing. So I did not use best press with this. If I was doing a 60-degree quilt and I was cutting it off from, bigger pieces like fat quarters or yardage, I would probably add a little magic sizing or a best press. Just it would give me a little more stability. But this, since I was just using already pre-cut 2.5 inch strips, I didn't worry about it. And these are kind of smaller pieces, so they're easy to maneuver. So it's usually, you have more trouble when you have these really long bias edges, and we're not really dealing with those, because once we have the block sewn together, the block is sewn together, none of these edges are biased. Like I told you, the only edge, we have one short edge here and one short edge here that's biased, and that's all in the whole block. This is not biased. So once we have it together, so it's actually really goes together well. All right. Love your tips. Lots of love your tips. That's good. Something about the strips.
Would you measure the half hexes or lost it?
Somebody was asking about the size of the block. So because this is an angle, the size this way, so these blocks should be 4.5 right now, width, okay? But the length is gonna be, kind of an odd measurement. So my tips are clipped off. So my blocks are gonna be somewhere like right under 10 inches. So you should be about 10 inches and if the tips were on, I would say 10 inches, give or take an eighth of an inch. So, all right. So any other questions? It's easier without the bulk of seams? Yeah, the bulk is always, I always try and eliminate bulk anywhere I can. And if I can get away with not having to match 50 different seam intersections, it's a beautiful thing. Yeah, Deborah, she's asking about the size of the block. I just explained that, so before joining. But again, I recommend you kind of just sew your rows together and then measure the rows, because then you can adjust from there. Okay, and if the end pieces, they're a little bit oversized, so once you have all your strips joined, you can always trim the top and the bottom. Very, very easy. All right. Do you offer any classes on using the different features of the XL Stripology ruler? So I have, of course, when I travel and teach, I teach with my rulers all the time. All of my demos, I always like to show you how to use the rulers, because they will replace everything else you're working with pretty much. So I always use that in all my demos. Now, do I have online classes? I do not have particularly online classes with the Stripology rulers. However, I do have a block of the month that we just did last year, Stroll in Pairs, where I used the rulers throughout and showed you all the different techniques with that quilt using the rulers. My Fast and Furious Club, if you're following any of that, the class videos there, I use the rulers. So I use them all the time. So that's all I use for whatever I'm doing. Okay. Julie says, can you review which pieces you use the trimmer on? And what step, like after you, and the only for this, what I showed you today, the only thing that you use the trimmer on is the parallelograms if you're doing the spaced version. So that every time we have a 60-degree, but this is not, you don't need it on these guys. You could technically do it on this corner, but you don't need it. So you could, but no need. Only the parallelograms. What did I even do without the trimmers, says Sheila. That's beautiful. I know, they are really, really handy little things. And I'm telling you, I'm going to be showing you a whole bunch of stuff, how to use the other two with some fun sew-alongs throughout the year. Is the extra sashing sheet to be printed under free patterns? No, so go to the blog. Again, that's where there's links to everything. So I have an updated blog. We just have to link into this video once we are done taping, but all the links to the files, the sheets are there already. All right. Okay, so are you having fun with it? So some of the most amazing comments, I love hearing comments, and I'm getting emails from you, so thank you so much. Thanking me for, they just started using their ruler and they maybe had it for a long time, and all of a sudden they're learning so much how to use it. And one of the most beautiful comments that I received today was something she did Elvira and learned a lot from there, and then thought that she would never be able to do something so exquisite like this, but it looks like a kind of a hard quilt, but thought that she could never do that and decided to do it. And the comment was, "You are making me such a better piecer." And that is so awesome, because I always say accurate piecing is not just your seam allowance. There's so many things that go into accurate piecing, your blocks turning out the right way. And I actually compiled all those little tips into a video that you can find on my YouTube and on my website. It's called Piecing Accuracy. And one of the things that goes into it is, of course, starting with accurate pieces. So you're cutting, and the rulers just make it so nice and accurate. Now, I saw some posts that you were having issues with your top parallelogram not fitting your blocks and stuff like that. So just know you can always trim. You can always trim it in, if you're using the triangle rulers. I showed you how to trim the whole block if you wanted to do that. If you don't have a triangle ruler, just use a flat ruler and trim it even on each side, even with the diamonds. So not a big deal. As long as all your blocks are similar size, you'll be fine. But like again, since we have that little sashing strip between the blocks, I wouldn't worry too much about it. Don't be too picky. There's a difference between being accurate and doing things well, and then being too, I should say, I don't like using this word aner, but persnickety. Should we say persnickety? Or I don't know. I'm missing that word right now. But I try to save time so skip some steps that don't really matter in the final product. So I can take those shortcuts if it really doesn't matter in the end. So I say don't worry too much about it. Put your blocks together and it'll all come together nicely. Tanya's asking, can you show how you lined up the 60-degree ruler again on the 30-degree triangles where the center line matches up? Well, again, I just want you to kind of go back to the video because I don't have pieces here to show you, but I kind of slow down in the video so you can just rewind the video and go back to it and pause it right there. So, okay, I'll also describe it in the pattern. So read through it in the pattern. Do the diamonds need to be trimmed for ease of sewing together? Are you talking about these? These are the only diamonds we have, and that I talked about last week. So maybe go back and watch that. They should not need to be trimmed. If your half hexies and your diamonds were cut accurately, they should be fitting nicely. However, if you're ending with a piece that's too short all the time on the top, then just trim everything. So if you're cut maybe your trapezoids a little short, just trim your diamonds and you'll be fine. Just as long as you do them all the same. All right, I had trouble getting consistent rhombus side using the strip ruler. Maybe it's the moving to the 1/4 inch line. I cut all mine with a hex and more instead because my practice ones didn't work out. This is Lexi. So cutting the hexie. So using a ruler like this, of course, when we're cutting at an angle, we're not going to get precise down to a needle width this way, because those measurements where we're going diagonal across are not going to be consistent. However, they should be so close. I'm talking about like a needle width. So they should be that close. If they're more than 1/8 of an inch difference, then it has something to do with where you placed your on the 1/4 inch line. And so if your hexagons, some of them turned out to be bigger than the others, but I would recommend, if you want to, just trim the bigger ones. I wouldn't worry about it too much. And so I wouldn't worry about it too much unless you're getting them really off. If they're, like I said, if they're more than 1/8 of an inch difference, then something went wrong. Okay, Cindy says, can you trim setting triangles when they are 60-degree before you cut in half? Not with our little trimmer. You have to cut them in half before doing that. So, okay, now if you are cutting these with a ruler, with a 60-degree triangle ruler, you will get the blunt edge anyway. Monique is asking, are you getting more mats in? So the mats are being shipped from Taiwan to Creative Grids. The shipment was expected early April, so we just don't know yet if the coronavirus is affecting any of that delivery. It didn't seem to be, so as soon as Creative Grids gets them in, I will get my shipment. So I will keep you posted. Rachel says, do you suggest getting the mini if you have the XL? I kind of do. I use it a lot, and especially, you will just see the size. It's so much smaller, and so I use it for all of my little stuff. It's so much handier, and I'll give you guys a good demo on it on Tuesday. But I really use this a lot, and that is not just me saying it, because that's the feedback I've gotten too. So maybe some of you that have had it for a while and are using it a lot, maybe chime in on this. But it's really kind of a hidden gem, I should say. It's well worth it. And they go really well together, these two sizes, I feel like. Now that we have the XL and the big block squaring up units on the XL, this is a great accompaniment for that smaller stuff. All right. Which way would you press the long block pieces? So if you have, if you're doing just the regular original version, just putting the blocks together, I would just do all the seams in the same direction and then do it that way. But if you're doing the spaced, I would press them all towards the sashing. Press them towards the sashing piece. So that's what I did. You can show you here again on the overhead. They are all pressed towards the sashing right here. All right. Does that make sense? I'm gonna have to get a little drink. I'm thirsty now. Okay, let's find a couple more questions. Marie's saying, when putting together my rows, I only use 2 colors per block. The center line is not lining up correctly. The edges of the blocks are lining up okay. Oh, it's moving too fast. I hope when it's quilted, this will not matter. So what I think I understand is like that this seam is not centered on here. And that's okay. So let's just look at this. Because you have the sashing in between, it really doesn't matter if it's not completely directly across. I see right here, this one is probably like a needle width or 2 above, but it really does, you really can't tell. No, once it's quilted, you cannot tell. Okay. All right. Oh, here's a lot of love for the mini. So there you have your answer. A lot of love for the mini. Mary says, yes, get the mini. I didn't think I needed it, but I absolutely love it. So that's great. My favorite tool for small blocks and pieces. Yeah, so, you know, squaring up blocks, I love the XL or the squared ruler for squaring up all my blocks, the mini for little blocks, but I love the mini for squaring up my block pieces. So half square triangles, quarter square triangles, flying geese, all this kind of stuff. So I'm going to show you more of those tricks on Tuesday. But I think we need to move on. If we don't have any really pressing questions, I will go back and look at your questions and try and answer them as best I can in like after the video. And so sometimes if you have a really specific questions about your pieces, it's sometimes better just to take a photo and post it in the crew and do a separate post so you can get specific answers on that. And just a little tip, if you are posting in the crew anything related to customer service, please just email me, because when a post goes up, we have so much traffic now in our group that those posts get hidden. So I sometimes don't ever see them because I'm not on Facebook all day long. But so email me and I get to my emails multiple times a day. But if you are posting about something and just want me to see it, make sure to tag me, and then I can always go back and see it. But if it's something urgent, especially customer service, just email me. All right. But I wanted to show you some things. Last Tuesday, I showed you some new things that were in a store. We had a lot of fabric come in this last week, just actually a couple days ago. So the little minions, AKA the kids, are working on it in the basement. So we're adding a lot of 1 yards, a lot of new 1 yards, really great ones for backgrounds and accent pieces. But I just wanted to quickly show you, if you didn't see last Tipsy Tuesday, the new bundles that we have. This one, they're already very popular, many of them. So this is watercolor sketchbook, really beautiful, very artsy, just monochromatic grays, whites and blacks, and then with a touch of gold in there. So love this, and this one's been flying out. We have our chicken bundle, also very popular. So I found some really fun chicken prints and then paired it with some fun chicken wire, some eggs, some footprints, chicken footprints and stuff like that. Really cool for the chicken lover. We have coffee bundle. So this is actually a small bundle because there's a panel. So a coffee panel, which is really great. So it's intended to use for placemats. So it has 4 different placemats that you could cut out, but of course you don't have to cut it out as a placemat. You can cut it out as squares. So here's the other 4. And so what I did, I put the one panel with 6 different half yards of coordinating prints that you can use for backings and bindings if you want to do the placemats, or it could be great pillows or on a bag or whatever. And then we sell the panel separately too, so you can get just the panel if you want. And then another hit that was a surprise hit, we are putting together mystery bundles. So these are bundles with some of our prints that we have. Sometimes we get more of few prints when we're putting together a bundle, and then the other prints ran out, so we can't make more of that particular bundle, so we have some override. So we're mixing them together, but I try and coordinate them, make them look really nice. And so good deal, 55 bucks for a mystery bundle. And then we had one layer cake. I forgot to show this last Tuesday. This is a really fun, very artsy, it's called Geometry. So very geometric prints from RJR, and it's digitally printed, so it's really cool prints, but very artsy, colorful, and fun. So I think they did a similar line last year that was really popular, and so I love this, really fresh colors. So we have these in just fresh and new. And like I said, a lot of new 1 yards coming up. They'll be showing up in the store this coming week. So let's get to our giveaway question. I know we've been on for a while now, but that's okay. It's a good Friday. I hope everybody's doing well in their stay-at-home orders. This is helping me along right now. But my question for you, since it's Easter coming up, what is your Easter treat? So we're gonna, of course, try and have some kind of Easter celebration with the family. I'm gonna cook like I've been doing for the past 2 weeks. I have some Icelandic lobster hiding in my freezer, so I think that's gonna get pulled out. Ooh, the producer was celebrating. And then my Easter treat. So I'm not much of a baker, but I would like to maybe make some dessert, so I need some ideas. So what is your Easter treat? Right now, my Easter treat is, of course, the Cadbury's eggs. I cannot get enough of them. I still have one big bag, and I may need to get to the store today to buy another one, just so it can last a little further. It's not good for me, I know, but it's just so good. And once a year, hey, I'm going to allow myself to do that. Anyways, next Tipsy Tuesday will be this coming Tuesday. So that's April 14th. Always on Tuesdays, we're at 7 p.m. Central Time. And then, of course, next following Friday at 3 p.m. And hopefully, you will be close to getting all your quilts together, all your strip to shores. So I will show you mine next Friday. I can't wait to work on it this week. And I'm also working on some new stuff. So maybe you'll get some sneak peeks next week. But that is it for me today. Happy Friday and have a wonderful Easter. If you celebrate Easter, happy Easter. And I will see you next week. Cheers.